Is the American empire collapsing?
Yes, it is. The question, the key question for everyone to be asking themselves, especially those in leadership, is how fast.
Every empire, the Greek, the Roman, the Persian, the Turkish, you fill in the blank. They all went up, then they went down. The ride up, much more fun than the ride down. We are now in the ride down, and we better be very careful because denial, which is the way most of America is so far dealing with it, is not a solution. It doesn't go away because you pretend it isn't happening. The dollar's decline is a literal barometer week in and week out of what we're seeing. I don't know what's coming next. I don't know whether the Chinese will be the next empire or whether it'll be handled in a multinational way. And there's some evidence in both directions. But the United States is not able to do what it did. And one of the greatest mistakes empires in the past have made is overreaching when they can't do that anymore. And my fear is we're at a very delicate point in that process, hampered by a denial of what's going on that periodically frightens me.
Every empire tells itself it is the exception. Rome said it. Britain said it. Now America repeats the same story. History does not bend for pride. It moves in patterns, and those patterns are visible today. Political paralysis, billionaires blasting into space while bridges collapse, endless wars that drain more than they built, an entire generation sinking into debt just to survive. These are not marks of a power rising, but of one wearing itself out. The most corrosive element is not even the decline itself, but the refusal to acknowledge it. That denial accelerates the fall. Empires do not usually collapse because an outside force tears them apart. More often, they disintegrate from within, all while declaring themselves invincible. Empires tend to last about 8 generations, roughly 200 years of dominance before their contradictions crush them. America, born in the late 1700s, is now entering its 8th generation, right on schedule with the rhythm of history. This is not coincidence. It is the natural cycle of empire. Believing otherwise is not strength, it is hubris. Military might and financial clout remain, but they are being hollowed out by dysfunction, inequality, and denial. Every empire clings hardest just before the fall, insisting that its supremacy will stretch on forever. America is no different. The decline is not a future event waiting to arrive. It is the reality already unfolding, and the more it is denied, the faster it gathers speed.
With very few exceptions, empires last about 250 years, and the United States is right on schedule. So according to John Glubb's theory, empires go through 6 stages over about 250 years. And looking back, he might just be right. The Arab Caliphate lasted about 250 years, the Mughal Empire about 240, the Dutch Golden Age around 220 years, the Habsburg Empire roughly 250, and the British Empire just over 250. The U.S. has followed Glubb's 6 stages. It starts with the Age of Pioneers, followed by the Age of Conquest, Commerce, Affluence, Intellect, and finally, the Age of Decadence. America's Age of Pioneers from 1776 to 1850 was a time of energetic founding, idealism, revolutionary spirit, risk-taking, included the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Lewis and Clark's expeditions, amazing and exciting times for the new country. Then the Age of Conquest, when the empire expands, grows its military, and consolidates its borders. This had the tragic Indian Removal Act of 1830, the annexation of Texas, the Mexican-American War, the California Gold Rush, and the Spanish-American War in 1898. Then the Age of Commerce from 1890s to 1945, when trade, infrastructure, and industry boom. This is the American Industrial Revolution, the Transcontinental Railroad, the Roaring Twenties. President Coolidge said in 1925, quote, "The chief business of the American people is business." That was followed by the Age of Affluence, 1945 through the 1970s, a time of mass prosperity, rising consumption with the GI Bill, suburban housing boom, rapid growth of the middle class, consumer culture, the rising consumption, and a wonderful time of optimism, especially if you were white. This was followed by the Age of Intellect, with rapid innovation, intense public debate, and ideological splintering. In the US, it was Silicon Valley, computers, the internet, AI, and culture wars. And finally, the Age of Decadence, from about 2000 to today. This is the end time of unsustainable debt, materialism, bureaucracy, the loss of civic virtue, and military overreach. The US debt is currently at $36 trillion. Trust in government at 22%. The US population is in two hostile camps. The American president attacks other countries with no consultation. The US military is on the US streets, arresting US citizens. People disappear in unmarked cars by unidentified masked agents of the government. If Glove's theory looks like it's right on schedule, it is. The question isn't will the US fall, it's how many years or months does it have left?
The way empires rise is also the way they fall. America rose by colonial settler violence and expansion, and Israel is just a microcosm of that. They rose by belligerence and brutality and genocide, and this is exactly what's bringing them down now. Yes, it is violent. Yes, it is savage. Yes, it is criminal and horrific, and it's incredibly painful. But it's like water draining out from a pool. It moves faster and more violently at the bottom of the vortex until it disappears. What we're seeing now, in my opinion, is the dying spiral of American empire, and Israel is the drain that it's going down.
Economists and presidents keep repeating the same promise that America will bounce back, that the good old days of endless growth and dominance are just around the corner. But history doesn't speak the language of hope. It speaks the language of patterns. Historians see those patterns clearly, and they know the story of empires rarely ends with a comeback. Rome promised revival. Britain promised revival. None of it lasted. America is making the same mistake, clinging to optimism while the world quietly stops believing. The US dollar was once untouchable, the foundation of global trade and trust. Today, countries are steadily moving away from it, forming their own agreements to trade in other currencies. When trust in the dollar fades, ordinary Americans pay the price. Imports get more expensive, inflation bites harder, and the cost of living, already crushing for millions, spirals beyond control. A weakened dollar means the wages in your pocket, the savings in your account, and the retirement you've planned lose value faster than you can keep up. It won't feel like an abstract decline. It will feel like groceries doubling in price, medicine becoming unaffordable, and your money simply not stretching far enough anymore.
No one today trusts America. You talk to the leaders in Europe, not one of them trusts America. You go to the Middle East, not one of the leaders that I've met a number of them, trust America. The only one who trusts America was a military intelligence chief of Israel. And I said, you're the only one in the world that trusts America. And his answer is, I have no choice. That means he knows that he doesn't trust America.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a sad thing. I mean, speaking as American, it really hurts me to see that happen. I think the world is going to be a really messy place when that is the case.
What is the worst case scenario of what we're going through right now that is uniquely crazy?
I don't think what people are really prepared for is if the dollar is no longer the world reserve currency.
Yes.
Like, a lot of the benefits we've gained from the U.S. world order are going to start to go away real fast. I kind of think we're already here. Like, I think that the world is going to get reordered around us. The Europeans and the Canadians and the Australians are going to think they're more reliable partners. The Russians and the Chinese are never going to be reliable partners for us. And I think that we're going to be very alone, and I think that we're going to decline economically in ways that's going to hurt a lot of people. And I think we probably are going to end up in a place like where kind of my middle, like not my optimistic scenario, but my middle scenario is that like we retrench and become more like a France or a Germany, but without the social democracy obligations. But I just mean like in like what role we play, like where we're kind of just like one of the other nations. I think potentially it could turn into more like a Turkey or a Hungary type situation.
Oh, wow. That's a big gap.
Yeah, oh yeah, quite a big gap. Yeah, and they're both significantly worse than our current
France
situation.
to Turkey is a pretty
yeah.
big gap in
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, I'm saying like
be.
France is kind of like my like good, like that's a good outcome I think for me. Ostensibly there's another media tour happening around the Abundance guys, Ezra and them. Like they're
we had them on show.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
They're envisioning a future that's like even more optimistic for our country, where people are, where there's more wealth that is distributed to people at all scales of the income bracket, and we're solving a lot of problems and solving health problems, and AI is leading us to a new future. Like I don't know, man. I think that it's much more likely right now that we're in a retrenchment mode.
You're going to see the biggest crashes happening right now. So that's good for me because the price of gold and silver go up.
That's interesting because most people in India until the last decade have been migrating to the US, thinking that that is where is the land of opportunity to pursue the great American dream. But over the last 2 years, we've seen an increasing number of people coming back in droves back to India because that's where they're seeing the opportunity. So that is a very interesting shift that I'd never thought would happen so quickly in my lifetime.
A quiet but significant shift is happening in the United States, largely invisible to most citizens. Those who truly understand the signs, economists, entrepreneurs, skilled professionals, are quietly preparing for life beyond the U.S., moving capital, skills, and even families to more stable countries. A recognition that the coming years will bring economic strain, political instability, and social unrest unbearable for ordinary life. The notion that America is the land of freedom is increasingly hollow. Ranked only in the 50s globally for economic and personal freedoms, the country demands payment for almost everything, making day-to-day life prohibitively expensive for many. Food is industrialized, engineered, and stripped of real nutrition, making survival not just costly, but increasingly unhealthy. The old assumption that the U.S. is the ultimate destination is fading. Latin American immigrants, historically eager to cross the border, are pausing or even reversing course, noticing in real time the rising crime, inflation, and instability that make America increasingly unsafe. Data shows border apprehensions have slowed, while high-skilled workers relocate to Canada, Europe, and Asia in growing numbers. The message is clear. America's decline is underway, and those most aware are acting to protect their futures. Ordinary Americans, largely unaware, will bear the consequences: higher costs, shrinking opportunities, a hollowed-out society, and a version of freedom that comes with a staggering price tag and little true choice.
Americans really baffle me. They love to preach about freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of choice, freedom to bear arms, and yet somehow they are not even free to eat real food anymore. It's adorable, really. They've got arsenals in their basements, like more guns than citizens, but can't stop a billionaire from turning corn into corn syrup and selling it back to them with a clown on the label. You're told to keep your gun to fight tyranny, but the tyranny is in your tap water, your cereal, and your grocery store, and nobody's been ever shot over that. Apparently, if it wears a lab coat and owns a super PAC, it's not tyranny, it's innovation. They say they are fighting for values, morals, the soul of the nation, but you're fighting each other over red and blue, two flavors of the same poison. Meanwhile, your food pyramid is upside down. Childhood obesity is normalized and the government is handing out safe limits for plastic in your blood. But hey, at least you've got 18 guns and a flag on your porch. That will definitely stop Nestle from owning your water rights. You've got entire militias ready to defend liberty, yet you still haven't figured out that liberty doesn't come in a microwavable tray. It's not freedom if everything you touch, drink, or eat is filtered through 5 mega corporations who legally consider your health a cost of doing business. And the irony, the divine comedy in all this, is that you mock the rest of the world for being asleep. But you're not asleep. You're just doped, distracted, diabetic, and arguing over which color, over which team gets to sponsor your collapse. Red or blue? So what was all that firepower about? To protect your right to eat hormone-injected chicken nuggets? In a collapsing empire where the real freedom left is the freedom to choose your brand of insulin? Wake up. Freedom isn't in your holster. It's in your capacity to say no to a system that feeds on your submission. And right now, you're feeding it 3 times a day.
This is McDonald's French fries from the United States. It has 11 ingredients. But in the UK, there's only 4, and salt is optional. This one has an ingredient called dimethyl polysiloxane, an ingredient that can be preserved with formaldehyde, a neurotoxin. This is United States Fanta right here. It's made with high fructose corn syrup, artificial dye, yellow 6, red 40, and sodium benzenate. In the UK, they have real orange juice inside, and it's colored with carrots and pumpkin. In Skittles, there's 10 different artificial dyes here in the United States, plus titanium dioxide, an ingredient that's banned in Europe because it causes DNA damage. Gatorade, here in the United States, uses red 40 and caramel color. In Germany, they use carrots and sweet potatoes to color their Gatorade. M&M's has 10 artificial dyes made from petroleum linked to hyperactivity in children. Here in the United States and in the UK, they only use 1.
I'm an American. I pay $1,600 for a flat that has no bedroom. That's 2/3 of my income. I'm an American. I work 50 hours a week. I don't have health insurance. I'm an American. I couldn't afford to have a child even if I wanted to. I'm $7,000 in debt. I'm an American. My health is declining because I can't afford Whole Foods because that's too expensive for my life. I am very overqualified for my job, but no one else is hiring. I'm an American. I make my boss hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, while I can barely keep myself alive. I'm an American. I have never been out of the States. I have never been on a vacation. I'm an American. I make $20-some an hour. A livable wage here is like 30-some. Yet I don't qualify for government assistance whatsoever. On the days I don't work, I'm so tired I just sleep all day. I'm an American. My electric bill is so expensive I sit outside in the heat because I can't afford to turn the AC on in the damn house. I'm an American, and I fear I'm just an average American. I'm living the American dream.